of the mayor and council. Anyone else wish to speak before we call our special call meeting? All right, that meeting is adjourned. We'll have our special call meeting. Let me see if I can turn to my agenda. First item on the agenda would be the consent agenda. We do have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion to approve by Councilmember Wynn. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Orleans. Does anyone have any questions regarding the consent agenda? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. Well, I'm going to start with the Bike to Month proclamation because we have all those folks here. We've been talking a lot about water, but we'll skip to Bike to Month. And I would like to invite all of the Bike Roswell crew to come forward while we read this proclamation recognizing their work and all of the bicyclists in Roswell. Whereas, for more than a century, the bicycle has been an important part of the lives of most Americans. And I've got to turn my cell phone off. And today, millions of Americans engage in bicycling as an environmentally sound form of transportation, an excellent form of fitness, and quality family recreation. And whereas the education of cyclists and motorists as to the proper and safe operation of bicycles is important to ensure the safety and comfort of all users, and whereas the League of American Bicyclists and independent cyclists throughout our state are promoting greater public awareness of bicycle operation and safety education in an effort to reduce accidents, injuries, and fatalities. And whereas the City of Roswell has been named a bronze-level bicycle-friendly community by the League of American Bicyclists, and I want to thank Bike Roswell for achieving that. That was through y'all's efforts. Now, therefore, I, Jerry Wood, Mayor of the City of Roswell, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2013 as Bike Month. And the week of May 13th to May 17th is Bike to Work Week. And I encourage council to ride with Steve Asenbrack on that week if it's not raining. Seems like it rains every time Steve and I get together to ride, including yesterday. And we ask all of our citizens to participate and enjoy the sport of cycling and to embrace the bicycle-friendly community spirit and share the road. So let's have a hand for Bicycle Roswell and all those folks who did it. And before I hear from Bike Roswell, I want to thank everyone who made the bicycle criterium yesterday possible. Bicycle Roswell was a big part of that. Our recreation department helped, our transportation department helped, our police department was involved, our fire department was involved. It was tough duty. It was extreme conditions for bicycle racing. The positive side of that is, despite the rain and despite the speeds, it was the safest bicycle race we've had in 12 years, and we didn't have any serious injuries, and only a couple of folks go down. And the bicycle ride in the morning in the rain, no one was injured, I believe, although we had a few scares. I was one of them. I scared myself on several downhills. But I want to thank the council for their continued support of that event. I will tell you, I always wondered what would happen if we got really extreme conditions on a bicycle race, but I can see now that unless there's a tornado, these cyclists can ride in anything, and safely, which is a real commentary to that. But all of the volunteers who made that possible, and the council who made that possible with their support, and the sponsors who made that possible, we really appreciate it. Although the spectator turnout was slim, understandably slim. The cyclists turned out, I would call it a successful event, and it proved the feasibility of the new course. For the folks who didn't turn out, it was actually under the awnings on Canton Street, you could have stayed dry and had a wonderful experience watching the bike race without a lot of big crowds. So I want to thank the council again and all the volunteers for putting on a great race and a safe race, and really drawing attention to Roswell as the premier bicycling community in the state. And I want to add one last thing. Every time I meet somebody as an elected official, and I want to talk about something other than myself, which is seldom. But every time I meet somebody, I ask them, why did you pick Roswell? And surprisingly, a lot of folks that I meet with, especially younger people, moved here because of cycling. They picked Roswell because it was a bicycle-friendly community. And that really leads to great things. So Bicycle Roswell and the bicyclists and the council's support of that and the staff's support of bicycling is making Roswell not just a bicycle-friendly community, but a business-friendly community and a better place to live. So with that, I will recognize the cyclist in front of us for anything they'd like to add to this. Doug Fallon hates to speak in public. I know that. He dreads it, but he does a great job. Broadwell, you need to become more of a public speaker. You're the only politician we've got out there.
I would really like to echo the thank you, because I really know that the council got behind this and really made it happen this year. It was some dicey times, but thank you so much. I'm so grateful to live in this city. It's fantastic to be supported so much by this city. Everyone, the rec department, the police, everyone just really helps us out. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Yes.
The railings this year were different. What brought that up?
That was the promoter used those railings. I don't know. I think it was a budget item for him.
It was less expensive for him to put those up in labor cost than what we previously used.
Those are the railings from Gene Dixon. He's one of the major bike promoters that puts on all the major races around town, and he does Athens. And those are the railings that came down from Athens and eventually made their way here in the wee hours of the morning and got put up.
Is that likely to continue?
It depends. It's all mostly a cost item. If we're using city employees, there's a cost there and a cost to the city. Where these guys come by, they get a truck, they do it every time. They can set a course up in less than an hour.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's have a hand. The council wants to get their picture taken with the boys in Lycra, the sexy boys in Lycra. So, council, if we could join you, we'd appreciate it.
Which way do you want to stand on that side?
Do we want to be on this side or that side?
I'm sorry I didn't wear my Lycra tonight, but wasn't the night for it.
Doug, how could you do that? Ready? Already sent them to you already.
All right, one more hand for the bike racing crowd. Doug, Eric, for y'all's collection of proclamations. And Roswell Heritage Day. We've got heritage folks here today. Who is here for the reading of the Roswell Heritage Day proclamation? If you would come forward, all you wonderful heritage people. And I'll read the proclamation, and you can tell us about all the events that are going to be happening throughout Roswell. Roswell Heritage Day is in May 2013, whereas the month of May is a nationally recognized Historic Preservation Month. And whereas the National Trust for Historic Preservation will commemorate the 9th Annual National Preservation Month, May 13th, with the theme, See, Save, Celebrate, encouraging communities both large and small to take the time to celebrate their history and historic places. And whereas Barrington Hall will be hosting the North Fulton Drama Club's production of Measure for Measure, tea with Beatrix Potter, several lectures, and Wednesday's walks in the garden. And whereas Bullock Hall will be presenting Rebel with a Cause exhibit, and whereas the Smith Plantation will be presenting the exhibits African Americans at the Smith Plantation and the Smith Plantation in the Civil War. And whereas the annual Mother's Day open house will take place at all 3 Southern Trilogy sites on Sunday, May 12th, with the theme of Mothers Helping Others. And whereas the Cultural Arts Center will be presenting the Roswell Photographic Society's Heritage Photography exhibit, the Atlanta Wind Symphony Concert, and the Roswell Presents show featuring Chicago's famous Second City. And whereas over 15 other events and activities will be taking place throughout the month, including the Memorial Day ceremony, Riverside Sounds Concert, Alive After 5, events at the Chattahoochee Nature Center, the GET Golf Tournament, and Works in Clay Show and Sale. Now therefore I, Jerry Wood, Mayor of the City of Roswell, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2013 as Roswell Heritage Days Month, and call upon all of our citizens to recognize and to participate in the special observance of Roswell's unique and important heritage. And welcome, and I appreciate everybody who's going to make this a great month, and I know we've got lots of more announcements to make, so the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm just thrilled to be here. Every year we try and recognize our very special history and culture in Roswell, and you've got a copy of the brochure that lists actually a total of 37 events happening just in the month of May. And there are staff here as well as representatives of some of the organizations that have events. I'd like them to tell you a word about what they're doing.
Mayor and Council, my name is Mark Walter. I'm president of the Roswell Photographic Society. Our exhibit is across the street at the Cultural Arts Center. I didn't realize the men in Leica were going to be here this evening, but here's a photo from last year's race. That was a little bit drier and warmer. Our exhibit is free and open to the public. Our meetings are held on the first and third Tuesdays of each month at the Adult Recreation Center, and those are also free and open to anyone to attend. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Morgan had so many events from the Nature
Center. Were you going to play us something, or is that just a prop?
Well, of course. Last Friday we actually started, but the last Friday of every month is going to be a drum circle at the Nature Center. We did it last year, and this year we're going to continue it. So if you've never played a drum, it doesn't matter, because we have a leader that helps you. So we gather around a circle, around a fire, and if you can't play drums, you can bring marshmallows. But the idea is you gather around and you start to play anything. It could be a pan with a wooden stick, and I want you to come, all right? This is called a djembe, by the way. It's an African-style drum. And you can bring anything you have, and if you don't have it, don't worry, because we've got extras, and the idea is to gather. And once the beat starts getting into your heart, you'll find something happens in this circle. It's powerful. And I want to see all of you come and try this one time. It's a mystical experience. May 18th, we have Bee Day. And bees are very important as pollinators. We're going to do the bee waggle. It's a dance that the bees do. We're going to dance, we're going to play, and we're going to make bees the most important thing of the day. I have a picture in the brochure on May 11th, and I bet you can't tell me who's in the canoe. In the front is Liz Hausman, and in the back is Joan Garner, two of our Fulton County Commissioners. We have a birding canoe trip. This coming Friday, we have James Casto doing his singer-songwriter concert series again. So there's so much happening, and you all have an invitation to Rockin' at the River coming up May 11th. So just come and visit.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cammie Stevens. I'm the chorus manager for the Michael O'Neill Singers. The Michael O'Neill Singers are right across Atlanta Street. We're over off of Hermosa Boulevard. We're a 130-voice symphonic chorus, so you can be hearing us right here in Roswell. Otherwise, you have to travel into the city of Atlanta to hear a symphonic chorus. So we're over there. We also have a 30-voice ensemble named Kaleidoscope. Our mission is to educate, enrich, and just, provide these concert experiences of very high quality up here in Roswell. Every year we have 7 or 8 concert events up here, again, right across the street. Our concert's coming up in May is a Beatles tribute. And for the first time ever, we're kind of stretching behind our typical classical choral music to invite a Beatles tribute band, The Return. They're one of the finest in the business. And they're going to be with us on the concert stage. We'll sing a few things like, The Long and Winding Road and Eleanor Rigby. Then we're going to sit down and let The Return take over and do what they do. And we invite all of you to come over to that. It's Friday night, May 17th, again, at Roswell United Methodist Church, right across the street. Thank you.
Very cool.
I'm with Roswell Fine Arts Alliance, and we are going to have a Heritage Day program Tuesday, May 21st at 7 p.m. at the Roswell Visual Arts Center, and we're going to have Mary Williams, a storyteller extraordinaire, come and tell a few stories about Roswell. And then, since RFAA has been around since 1971, we're going to do an interactive quiz about where were you, what were you doing, and what was popular in 1971. For instance, the U.S. launched Mariner 9, and it was the first spacecraft to do what? And on what show did Dano get to book a bad guy? No, know that. That would be Hawaii Five-0. So we have 17 questions, and if you're a trivia kind of person, you need to come. The meeting is free and open to the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Brandy Bryant, and I'm excited to be representing the Roswell Cultural Arts Center. We have got a very fun show coming up on May 24th. It's the Roswell Presents series. They're presenting Chicago, Second City, live from Chicago. So a few of the alumni you may recall, Dan Aykroyd, John Belushi, Tina Fey, Steve Carell. So it's going to be a fantastic night. And I'm a mother. I know I would prefer that as a gift, tickets to the show. So for your mother, your wife, your kids, please buy tickets and spread the word. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Robert Weinbarger with Barrington Hall. You've already run down much of what we're doing, so I'll just say all over again. But looking at this, I see that May has 30 days. We're doing 29 events, so that's why my hair is gray. We've got Wednesday Walks in the Garden. We've got the Measure for Measure coming up with the North Fulton Drama Club. That'll run for 7 performances. They're setting it in the 1920s against Prohibition and speakeasies. We have our Thursday lectures coming up for 4 Thursdays this month. May the 11th is Tea with Beatrix Potter, which is always fun. We've already had people wanting to know she'll be signing books that day, so you can tell she's doing a good job. She's only been dead about 40 years. We just have a few openings left. It is filling up pretty fast, so if you want to come, do get tickets soon. And our Saturday brunch lecture will start May the 18th, and then we'll follow up May the 19th with our third Sundays, where you get a free Sunday at the end of your tour every third Sunday through the summer. So come and see us at Barrington Hall and have a Sunday with us. Thank you.
I just want to speak a little bit about the 3 houses, what we do on Mother's Day. Y'all probably know we have a free open house on Mother's Day. We usually have about 400 or so people come. But one of the other things we do that reaches out to the community, y'all may or may not know about, we ask people to bring a food donation, and Robert and I usually are able to deliver enough food that fills up about 3 to 4 more buggies out there. And some years they have really been in need of that. So I think it's wonderful that we can contribute something back to the community. It's on Mother's Day, 1 to 3. It's free to everyone in the community.
Thank you.
And I just want to bring everybody's attention to the Riverside Sounds, our first one this Saturday, featuring Chris Thomas King. If you loved Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I can't say it.
Where art thou?
Where Art Thou?
That's Saturday.
He featured in that film, along with, he also featured in the film Ray. He's a fantastic blues musician. I encourage you all to come out for that. And it's just wonderful. We have so many amazing things going on in our city. So thank you so much.
All right. For those who do not have a photographic memory, which includes me, if we want to go back and look at our calendar and look at this calendar of events, is there a place on the internet we can go?
If it's a city event, you can find it on the city calendar, but I'm afraid there's not one other all-encompassing website where every single one of these events will be listed. This brochure itself will be on the website, and so if you can find the Heritage Days in May event, you can download a copy of this.
We can go to Heritage Days in May on the city website.
Right.
And all these events will be
Right.
on that.
Yes.
That's a good point, because I cannot remember it. But I do want to thank everyone who's putting on events. This council has made it part of our goal to have festivals and events. And if May is a great example of what this council is accomplishing with events every day. And
Here, I thought they were just celebrating my birthday month.
and they are.
Mayor, these folks would love a picture with you.
We would love our picture down here. Come on, Council. Let's get our picture taken with all these people, and the drum, and the photographs. I'm overwhelmed.
These are cold.
Overwhelmed.
Did you see that bicycle picture? Did you see that gorgeous bike picture?
That's awesome.
That is
Love
a
it.
fabulous bike picture. Okay.
Wow.
I've not taken this many pictures in 5 years. Wow, this is a crowd. Okay. Becky, can you scoot in just a little? Morgan, just a little? Yeah, right there.
All right.
Perfect.
Ready?
Thank you for coming down.
Okay, they're first. You got that? All right, and right here, smile for the phone. Got mine.
Do not let the council leave without a
Hang on,
We got it.
everybody hang on, don't
Don't
move.
move. I got 3.
Here we go. One more. Here we go. Brochure will be on the website's homepage.
Okay, I got something.
Great shot.
This is a phone. You know, Doug. That would be a
Brochures in the back. I expect to see you at each and every one of these events. Give me this brochure. Just a couple more in May. May's not quite filled out. Is that what you're telling me? Great work. All right. The next proclamation, which is my pleasure to read, is back to the theme of drinking water. Roswell has the best tap water in the state, right here. Whereas water is the defining part of our past, present, and future, and whereas water is a basic and essential need of every living creature, and whereas our health, comfort, and standard of living depend upon an abundant supply of safe water, and whereas we are all stewards of the water infrastructure upon which future generations depend, and whereas the citizens of Roswell should have a safe and dependable supply of water both now and the future, and whereas the city received the Georgia Association of Professionals Water Plant Gold Award 4 years in a row, and in 2011 and 2012 was awarded the Platinum Award for meeting and exceeding safe drinking Water Act standards, and whereas we are calling upon each citizen to help protect our sources of water from pollution, practice water conservation, and recognize the importance of a safe, convenient, and sustainable water system. Now, therefore, I, Jerry Wood, do hereby proclaim May 5th through 11th as National Drinking Water Week, and I'll ask all of our citizens to throw away their water bottles, plastic water bottles, get their recyclable water bottles and their pitchers and their cups, and drink Watersville tap water and participate in this national event. Stu, is there anything else you can add to that as our lead water guy?
Mayor, I thought by now you would know better than to give me an open mic, but actually I think you have summed it up very well. We do often, as citizens, take for granted the water supply that most of the rest of the world would be envious to have. People that have to walk miles to get water that is nowhere near as clean and pure as ours. And we're proud to celebrate that, and as you know, we have an exceptional staff who are assembled that work day and night to make sure that we have excellent water, and we want to celebrate them and the product that they provide for all of us. So I appreciate your interest.
One more hand for Roswell's Water Department, the best water in the state. I have a nomination for the Cultural Arts Board.
Move to approve.
Larry Weissman. Do we have a motion? Motion by Councilman Wynn. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Eichelhardt. All in favor, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. And at this time, we'll call upon Kay Love to present the Mayor's fiscal year 2014 budget.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I'm going to call on Ryan Luckett, who's going to do the presentation of the FY 2014 budget, but I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank Ryan and the staff, as well as the Finance Director, Keith Lee, for all of their hard work, along with the city departments, to make this a very good budget this year and a balanced budget, which is the most important thing that we do related to the budget. So I'll turn it over to Ryan.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is our FY 2014 proposed operating and capital budget. This evening we're going to start out by giving you a brief budget summary. We'll give you some additional details on our general fund revenues and expenditures. I'll also provide you some highlights on our other funds. And then we'll talk about some of the next steps that will be happening in the budget process. A brief budget summary. As Kay mentioned, the budget is balanced. Our revenues exceed our expenditures. There is no increase in the combined millage rate. The proposed budget continues to invest in economic development and job creation. Road resurfacing is incorporated into the operating budget in FY 2014. And overall, the budget continues to sustain the high-quality city services, facilities, and equipment. These budget principles helped guide the development of the FY 2014 proposed budget. We've discussed these at some of the previous work sessions, and just to highlight those once more, our budget is balanced with current revenues funding current operating expenditures and maintenance capital. Our reserves are used only for one-time capital and road resurfacing. The budget maintains at least 3 months of reserve for operating expenditures. Again, there is no increase in the combined property tax rate, and we do maintain the current level of city services. This next slide provides you an illustration of our total source of funds across all city funds. As you can see, FY 2013, the blue section represents our revenues, and the red section represents our use of reserves. So in FY 2013, we had $103.9 million in revenues and $5.8 million in reserves, used for a total of $109.7 million in total source of funds for FY 13. Our total source of funds for FY 2014 proposed is $104.8 million, and that's made up of $100.8...
You've got 100... Oh, go ahead. I apologize. Okay. I don't for interrupting. I missed something. Go ahead.
$104.8 million in total source of funds, and that's made up of $100.8 million in revenue and $4 million in our use of reserves. As you can see, FY14 represents a decrease of about $4.9 million. That decrease is attributed primarily to less revenue associated with our capital lease program, as well as less fund balance used to fund capital compared to FY 2013. This next slide provides you a breakdown of how the $104.8 million is broken out across our different revenue sources. As you can see, our property tax, our charges for service external, which are our user fees within our enterprise funds, as well as our sales tax, make up the bulk of our total city revenues. This next slide provides you an illustration of our total use of funds, or our expenditures. As you can see, in FY 2013, our expenditures were $109.3 million across all city funds. In FY 2014 proposed, that is $100.9 million. That represents a decrease of about $8.5 million, the bulk of which is attributed to less debt service in FY 2014 compared to FY 13. This next slide provides you a breakdown of our all funds, the $100.9 million across our city departments. And again, you can see that our police department, administration department, our environmental and public works department, and our recreation and parks make up the bulk of that budget, representing about 68%. And then finally, on our all funds, you can see this provides you a history of our authorized full-time positions. You can see in FY 2009 we had 624 full-time positions, and in FY 2014 we have 597. That represents an increase of about 3 positions from FY 2013. And I'll get into some more of those details in just a minute. This next slide, we're moving on to the general fund. So this provides you a picture of our source of funds for the general fund. The blue section, again, represents our revenues, and the red section represents our...
Just for the folks in the audience,
Yes.
if you could explain the biggest difference between the general fund and all funds.
The general fund is our main source of revenues, our property taxes and sales taxes, and it funds the bulk of city services such as our public safety, recreation and parks, and transportation departments.
And it does not include enterprise funds where we're providing a service and charging a fee. It doesn't include solid waste pickup and the water,
our recreation participation fund, and our stormwater.
So we tried to look. We separate our enterprise funds out, which are revenue producing, from our purely tax-supported funds.
Exactly. So our general fund revenues in FY 2013 totaled $60 million. In FY 2014 proposed, we anticipate a total source of funds of $61.2 million. That represents an increase of about $1.2 million from FY 2013. That is primarily attributed to increases in sales tax and our property tax revenues. This next slide provides you with a breakdown of those total general fund revenues across the major categories. And again, you can see our sales tax, property tax, as well as our franchise, alcohol, and business and insurance taxes make up the bulk of our general fund revenues, totaling about 87%. Now, in terms of our property tax, our revenue projections are based on an estimated digest value. We anticipate receiving a preliminary digest from Fulton County within the next month. Our conversations with them initially indicate there might be some growth in the digest. However, if you remember from our March 18th budget work session, we talked about our revenue projections for property tax. We are being conservative in that we are estimating not for any of the outstanding appeals to work in the favor of the city. I remember there's about 1,000 appeals that are still outstanding, property tax appeals. In addition to that, we're assuming about a 15% decline in our motor vehicle digest value as a result of State House Bill 386. And those two things combined bring our digest, we're anticipating a decline of about 3.1%. Additionally, something else we discussed at our March 18th budget work session was the shift of our debt service, a portion of our debt service property tax rate, millage rate, from the debt service rate to the M&O rate to help fully fund maintenance capital and other increased costs. The FY 2014 budget does include that shift of 0.405 mils to our M&O rate. This next slide provides you with a 10-year history of our millage rate. And as you can see, over the last 10 years, our millage rate has declined twice, and the current rate has been maintained since FY 2009 at 5.455 mils. And again, to reiterate, in FY 2014, that millage rate is maintained at 5.455 mils. This next slide gives you some information on our sales tax. As you can see, our proposed revenue for FY 2014 indicates additional $1.7 million in sales tax revenue over FY 2013. The bulk of that is related to increased economic activity and recovery in the state of Georgia and the metro area. It also includes some for the anticipated loss negotiations as well. So our total our sales tax figure for FY 2014 is $21.4 million. The next slide gives you some information on our general fund expenditures. As you can see, in FY 2013, the blue section represents our operating expenditures, and the red section represents our capital expenditures. That's both one-time and maintenance capital. As you can see, our total expenditures in FY 2013 were $60 million. In FY 2014, the total is $61 million. Overall, that's an increase of $1 million, or about 2%. And most of that is attributed to the new initiatives that are included in the FY 2014 proposed budget.
Just for the councils and the public, 2014 is showing what's coming from our current revenues. This does not include $14 million, which the citizens improved for capital costs. So if you look at the total capital expenditures, it's substantially higher than this. This isn't including the $14 million, which is funded from the bond.
Right. So the next slide provides you with a breakdown of those general fund expenditures across our city departments. As you can see, our police department, rec and parks, transportation, and administration make up the bulk of that at about 73%. Just to provide you with some of the highlights for the general fund proposed budget. The personnel-related initiatives, as we mentioned before, there's an increase of 3 positions. That includes a new fire captain to help manage the EMS program in the fire department, moving a digital media designer from part-time to full-time, as well as an additional full-time crew worker for the Recreation and Parks Department for the river. This also includes additional funding for the building permit contract with Safe Built to help expand staffing capacity there to meet the current demand. The next slide provides you with our one-time initiatives, some highlights. So the 14 proposed budget includes funding for the municipal election, the creation of a new narcotics unit within the police department, and that's utilizing existing personnel. It also includes funding for city branding and outreach development, as well as one-time compensation for our employees. Our maintenance capital continues our citywide vehicle replacement at $1.6 million. Road resurfacing, as we mentioned before, has been incorporated into the operating budget. As you might remember, at the mid-year budget amendment in FY 2013, $1 million was appropriated at that time. So this adds $800,000 to that for a total of $1.8 million funded for road resurfacing in FY 2014. The budget also continues our facilities maintenance program, replacement of our police motorcycles, additional resources for park maintenance, as well as our facility maintenance at our historic homes. So in summary, for our general fund, you can see our total resources are $61.1 million. Our total expenditures are $61 million. That leaves approximately $165,000 available for programming. And as we mentioned with our budget principles, the general fund does maintain at least 3 months' worth reserve of our operating expenditures, and that's indicated there at $13.8 million.
When I say available for programming, council, that means without changing anything in this budget, that's additional monies this council could spend this year. I encourage you to choose wisely.
I thought it was going to be $250. You spent some of it already?
The budget, that was preliminary information, but this is how much is available for programming at this point.
This next slide provides you with a summary of the unfunded operating requests within the general fund, totaling about $481,000. Moving on to our other funds. This slide for the solid waste fund, as you can see, this is a little different. It gives you the revenues and expenditures. The blue section is our FY13 approved budget, and the red section is our FY14 proposed. Our total source of funds within the solid waste fund are down by about $300,000 from FY 2013. That's made up primarily of decreasing amount of residents subscribing to the premium service, as well as some declines within our commercial pickup. Additionally, you can see that our expenditures are lower by about $300,000, and that's due to less capital being funded in FY 2014 and compared to FY 13. Some highlights of the solid waste fund: some additional staff, temporary and part-time for the recycling center, as well as continuing to focus on our fleet and the parts and vehicle replacement. It also provides a one-time capital to replace the sign at the recycling center. Our stormwater fund, as you can see, our revenues are stable from FY 2013 to 14 at $2.9 million. Our expenditures are down slightly, and this is mainly due to the effort to build up the financial reserve within the stormwater fund. If you remember, the fund was created in FY 2012, and over time we've been building up that reserve. For FY 14, that reserve is fully funded at 2 months of operating expenditures. For our water and sewer funds, our total source of funds is up by about $200,000 from FY 2013. That increase is attributed to some increase in consumption. The other part of that is $1 increase in the base rate. And again, this was discussed at the March 18th work session, and that extra dollar increase in the base rate is needed to fund the debt service associated with the new water plant. Expenditures are also increasing by about $200,000, mainly due to additional capital projects programmed for FY 2014. Some highlights in our water and sewer fund: we include a SCADA update for the water plant, replacing a skid steer, as well as some one-time capital for Spring Drive and Atlanta Street. Our hotel motel fund, our total source of funds is down by about $90,000 from FY 2013. That decrease is made up of less capital being programmed compared to FY 2013. Overall, our revenues in the hotel motel fund are up by about $60,000 compared to FY 2013. Our expenditures are down by about $90,000 as well, and this is mainly because of less capital being programmed, offset by some of the increases associated with the RBA and the CVB. Some of the highlights for the Hotel Motel Fund: you can see that for the Roswell Business Alliance, the budget includes a total of $440,000. That's an increase of $30,000. For the Convention and Visitors Bureau, the total funding is $505,000, an increase of $44,000. For our Rec Participation Fund, this slide provides you just with our source of funds for the Rec Participation Fund. As you can see, the total source of funds has increased in FY 2014 by about $400,000. That is mainly made up of about $200,000 in additional program revenues. The other part of that is $200,000 in use of reserves to help fund some of the capital for the Rec Fund. As you can see also, the green section, that indicates the general fund support for the Rec Participation Fund, and that is consistent with FY 2013 at $571,000. Our expenditures in the Rec Participation Fund have increased again by about $500,000 from FY 2013. This provides you with some of the items that are included that have helped been funded by that amount. Again, the increase in our program revenues of about $200,000 have helped fund some additional expenditures in the fund. That includes some additional recreation supplies, entertainment services, seasonal employees for our spray grounds, as well as some maintenance for facilities and fields, as well as the Roswell River Landing. The budget also includes one-time capital for replacements of appliances and various other equipment at recreation facilities. Moving on to our capital projects fund, and specifically one-time capital, you can see that the two items that really make up what our available funding is for FY 2014, that's $1.7 million in general fund balance. That's funding available above our reserves. In addition to that, we have about $700,000 in capital savings for a total available funding of about $2.4 million. These next couple of slides...
Before we go on,
yes.
That's at this time, we're anticipating, we hope to have a budget surplus every year. We've had one, so we'd have another round of capital projects coming forward in October. This is the funding that's available at this time. And we hope to have approximately $3 million to program in October, but that's purely an estimate. That's not a commitment.
So these next couple of slides provide you with some of the specific projects that are included in one-time capital. And you can see on the second slide here that those projects add up to about $2.4 million. In terms of our unfunded capital requests...
Let's go over a little closer. Back. The council is very concerned about this.
Okay.
So you need to go over each one of these.
Okay. Okay. So our administration department includes total one-time capital of about $120,000. That's for the data center relocation as well as upgrading the phones and servers and software. Our community development department includes $150,000 for document scanning as well as updating our design guidelines and our impact fee ordinance with the completion of the UDC. The fire department includes funding for renovation of fire station number 1. The police department, we have funding included for the 2 remaining police vehicles associated with the police officers that were added in FY 2013. In addition to that, we have 2 other vehicles added to support the narcotics unit. For our Recreation and Parks Department, you can see we have $400,000 associated with relocating the maintenance facility near the water tank. We have funding for Phase 2 of the old mill. Funding is also included for roof repairs at some of the different park facilities. Also roof replacements for Smith House and a couple of the outbuildings. We also have funding for the park security cameras and about $103,000 for other miscellaneous items, such as some additional lighting for Town Square and some other items like that. Transportation, we have a total of $975,000. That includes the River to Historic Town Square multi-use trail at $600,000. It also includes adding a turn lane to the Old Alabama connector, and a replacement of a bucket truck, and it also includes funding for a streetlight efficiency study to try and find ways to reduce our electricity bill associated with our streetlights, and $20,000 in other miscellaneous items, including items such as pedestrian safety and speed reduction. Our unfunded one-time capital includes $35,000 for the administration department to replace the underground tank at the Cultural Arts Center with an above-ground tank. It also includes funding for the community development department of an additional $150,000 for document scanning. For our Recreation and Parks department, a total of $757,000 in unfunded one-time capital. This is made up primarily of our Roswell Riverwalk master plan, Riverside Park playground replacement, Waller Park extension repaving, replacing some acoustical improvements at the Cultural Arts Center. It also includes some shade systems, constructing public restrooms at Barrington Hall. It also includes restroom renovations at the Community Activity Building, sidewalk connectivity at Roswell River Landing, canoe kayak dock improvements at Riverside Park, as well as restroom upgrades at the Physical Activity Building, and some other miscellaneous items that are more detailed within our budget document. And then finally, in the Transportation Department, unfunded one-time capital totals $9.4 million. And this is made up of the Historic Gateway, right-of-way, and utilities, as well as State Route 9 and 128 Oxbow Road, right-of-way and utilities. Design of Village Center for $650,000, the replacement of Willio Bridge, the sidewalk connectivity at $500,000. It also includes bike lanes for Riverside Road, a bicycle pedestrian plan for the city as a whole, converting Oxbow Drive to a two-way street, a traffic study at Highway 92 and Hart Scarborough Road, It also includes MARTA bus stop improvements as well as some additional pedestrian safety improvements above what's included in the budget. So total unfunded one-time capital is about $10.3 million. In terms of our next steps in the budget process, you can see that we have our public hearings coming up. That will be on Monday, May 13th, Monday, May 20th.
You explain to the public and the council the reason that we're required to have these village rate hearings.
Yes, state law requires us to have 2 readings of the budget. So those are scheduled for Monday, May 13th and Wednesday, May 29th. Also, according to state law, because of our millage rate, shifting the portion of our millage rate to our M&O rate, we're required to have 3 public hearings associated with our millage rate change, and those are represented as well in those 3 dates. I will also be providing information through the city website, press releases, and in the local newspapers. Our budget adoption is scheduled for May 29th. And of course, any add or delete information or requests that you have can be sent to our department, and we'll be glad to compile those and prepare those for presentation at a later public hearing. So that concludes the presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Does the council have any questions at this time? The staff will be available at your convenience for specific questions, but any questions that you'd like to ask tonight or comments tonight? Yes, Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a few questions. I noticed on the general fund, it looked like, I need to go back and find my notes here. We had, under the source of funds, for the general fund, you listed that there's $59.5 million in revenue, and we've got $55.5 in expenditures for the operating portions of the general fund. So that's, I guess that's $4 million in surplus above the operating, and then do we add maintenance to that as well to get down to, I think you said $2.4 million?
Our total maintenance capital within the 14 proposed budget is $3.8 million, and when you add the one-time capital to that, that's what totals the $5.5 million. Does that answer your question?
The one-time capital is $2.4 million. Is that correct?
Yes, $2.4 million, and that $2.4 million, though, is made up of 2 different sources. $700,000 of that is reprogramming current funding, so that's not included here. What is included here is the $1.7 million above our reserve that's being used to fund one-time capital.
Okay, and we have maintenance capital of how much?
$3.8 million.
So we're funding maintenance capital.
I'm sorry, wouldn't that be $5.5 million?
Right, so if you look on slide 15 at our proposed budget, the red section there, the 5.5.
My slides aren't numbered.
You're on the bottom corner.
Bottom corner.
That little thing right there.
Oh.
They're really small numbers. Page 5, bottom.
You can see the red section there, the $5.5 million. That's made up of the $3.8 million in maintenance capital and the $1.7 million in one-time capital for a total of 5.5.
I guess what I'm trying to understand is the revenue for the operating fund, excluding reserves, is $59.5.
Yes.
Then our operating expenses for the general fund are $55.5, so that leaves $4 million.
What that includes, if you look at the budget principles, what we talk about is that our current revenues fund operating expenditures and our maintenance capital.
Right.
So we're splitting it up a little bit differently, but so if you add our 55.5 in operating expenditures and our $3.8 million in maintenance capital, that is what matches up with our revenues, current revenues, with that $160,000 that we said is left over for programming.
Got it. Okay, I was mixing in one-time capital. That's where I was getting over. I appreciate that. The other question I had was, under unfunded one-time capital, we had $500,000 of sidewalk connectivity that was unfunded. Does that mean we had additional money elsewhere that was funded for sidewalk connectivity? Or did we not include that this year?
I think the idea is that some of the other projects that are currently ongoing, such as the bond projects, and a lot of the street projects include funding for sidewalks through those projects. So this is just not setting aside an entirely separate pot of money for sidewalk connectivity. But sidewalk work is still going on through some of the other transportation projects that are ongoing.
Okay, well, I think I would like to understand that better, because as the mayor mentioned earlier, we're spending a lot of money on sidewalk connectivity, so I think that's important for the city.
Councilmember DiPolito, to what Ryan said, additionally, there is some sidewalk connectivity money left in the current funding. It's not a lot to work on connecting schools and parks. And this was an additional request to replenish or add to that. But since we had the bond projects and other projects that are in play that already have either a multi-use trail and or sidewalk, that was not a high priority because we were funding some of those in other places. Where the gap will be is that we will be able to do less of filling those gaps where they come up, where there's a sidewalk to nowhere basically, or where there's not connectivity for a school or a park. But the larger projects where there are road projects all include some type of sidewalk or multi-use path.
The biggest project in this budget, and we put it all in one place and the council can choose to spread it out, was the river to the square. That was $600,000. That's a multi-purpose trail up to connect, with a focus on the river, it was connecting the river to the square. So y'all could reprogram that, but rather than spreading the sidewalk money around, we put $600,000 into one project. It's a big project.
And that's going through the national park?
No, that's going down 120. It was
the lane diet
previously under the name of lane diet, but it's a lot more than that. The idea is the council has decided to focus on the river. There's really no simple way to get from a cyclist or a hiker to walk up. Right now you've got a great bicycle trails along the river, then you've got a nice connection coming up Willio to 120, and this will connect the square to those bicycle trails. So we can spread out that $600,000, or y'all can put it in one place. And I was looking for an impact project.
Okay, thank you.
So we are putting a lot of money in the sidewalks in this budget, plus the bond issue has a lot of money for sidewalks.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Another question under the general fund highlights. There was mention of the police narcotics unit that's using existing personnel. So is that 36.5 just a movement from one fund to another, or is that additional?
It's additional funding for the equipment associated with the new narcotics unit. So it includes things like vests and other equipment that they would need to start up the narcotics unit.
Right, so that is really one-time expenditure for equipment. All right, thank you. And then lastly, and I'll have a lot more questions, I'm sure, but this is just what I picked up tonight.
Okay.
Under Safe Built, we have an increase of $66,865. Is there a revenue associated with that expense?
There's no new revenue. This is meeting the demand that's currently the Community Development Department is seeing through building permits. In FY13, our revenues are ahead probably by we have a budget of about $411,000 for building permits. We anticipate collecting about $500,000 related to building permits. So what this would do is change the contract to allow more flexibility in staffing, so that as revenues increase or as demand increases, Safe Built can add more staff to address those needs, as opposed to having to come back to council every time to ask for more funding for additional staff. So currently today we have a fixed set amount in the contract, and this would change that to be based on the percentage of revenues that the city collects.
Right. So there isn't necessarily revenue today, but the expectation is that there will be enough revenue to cover this additional expense.
Well, we are exceeding the budget today in revenues, so by almost $100,000. So we are exceeding the budget in terms of revenues, and then we do anticipate additional growth in the building permits for next year as well.
Right. I think you...
Are we bringing in more in revenues for the fees for building permits than we were paying in the fees for folks to go out and do the inspections? Do we know that?
Yes. The contract associated with building permits would be 70% of building permit revenues. So our revenues will always be enough to cover that contract need.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Councilmember Price.
Yes, if you could look at the Recreation Participation Fund bar graphs. And we see that the proposed for this year shows an increase in revenues from the fees. So I was just wondering why it was deemed necessary to also use reserves, that we haven't used in the past.
The increased fee revenue is being used to fund some additional operating expenditures, like the recreation supplies and some of the entertainment services for Roswell Presents or the Trilogy Crawl. The use of reserves that you see is being used to fund some one-time capital that's in the fund, such as replacing some of the appliances or equipment at some of our recreation facilities. So the use of reserves is for one-time purchases, whereas the revenue is funding additional operating costs.
Because I know we've made a big effort to put the rec fees in line with, surrounding municipalities and the true costs of those programs, which it appears we've done, but then we've turned around and borrowed from reserves. So it struck me as rather ironic.
Well, the additional program revenues are meant to cover the increased costs, the ongoing costs for the fund. But again, the use of reserves are just to help fund those one-time purchases that are needed, and because they do have some available fund balance.
The other thing I just wanted to ask about was the sidewalks. No, I'm sorry, the road resurfacing. That was the $1 million that was put in at the mid-year. So that was basically put in but not intended to be used in FY13. Is that right?
Right, as part of the next year's program. That's what it was intended for.
So we just sort of put it aside and then it gets added to next year's budget.
Right. It's available within our capital projects fund to be used along with the $800,000 to fully fund.
So technically it rolls over.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments regarding the proposed budget? Thank you. That will conclude the budget presentation. The last thing on the agenda is a recommendation for closure to discuss litigation and personnel. Do we have a motion? Don't everyone jump up. Motion by Councilmember Price. Motion approved. We're having closure. All in favor, raise your hands. That's good. Davidson wants to make sure we stick by the law.